Good morning. This is Dr. Petra, and we're at our Science of Mind class, and I am so happy that you are joining with me this morning as we continue on in our chapter on mental equivalence. So, we are starting this section called Perfect Action, No Mistakes. And, the second sentence, declare every day that no mistakes have been made, none are being made, and none can be made. That's a bold statement, isn't it? And so this whole section here is an exploration in how do we deal with our past and not make it a limitation. Not make it a predictor of the future. So the second full paragraph in this section says, of course we feel as though we've made mistakes. And we have made mistakes in the situation that we were in potentially. The question is, or the point here is that if we continually affirm, that was a mistake, I make mistakes, I always make these mistakes that are so critical. Do you see what we're doing is we are simply affirming that that's continuing, that is the state of affairs, and therefore the law simply says, oh, you make mistakes. Yes, you're right, you make mistakes. And that continues to perpetuate itself. There can be no necessity for mistakes. There can be no requirement for mistakes. The divine plan is one of freedom. We are free to choose to make whatever decisions we make, right? So it can't actually be a mistake. I remember when Jason was really little and he would come home, and this is, I think, a big piece of it. He would come home from school, certainly I came home from school when I was a kid, with all those big red X's on the paper, right? And what was pointed out was all the things we didn't do right, all the ways we got the answer wrong, and that was the focus. And these were mistakes. We had made a mistake on a test. We'd made a mistake. Right? When in fact, what I used to say to Jason was there is no such thing as a mistake if we learn from it. It's not a mistake if it's a learning opportunity. Oh, I'm learning a new piece of information. The answer was Abraham Lincoln, not George Washington. That I get to learn a new piece of information, or I learn it again. Maybe I've learned it before, but now I'm learning it again so that I can actually remember whoever fills in that blank was actually Abraham Lincoln, not George Washington. And so this idea of making mistakes is something that we really have to pay attention to, how much we carry that forward. And part of the idea, so that's the first piece, right? The first piece is just the continuation of a way of looking at the world, or a way of experiencing in the world that we really don't want. And it's that spiritual double vision where I can look back and say, well, that was a mistake. But that doesn't define me, or it doesn't define our experience, and it certainly doesn't define our way of going forward. We're not saying there are no mistakes as if everything we've ever done was perfect or correct or what we wanted. But it is, in fact, what happened, what we chose in the moment, whether we chose it consciously or unconsciously. And it is an opportunity for awakening, for learning, for looking at it and going, well, that didn't work out the way I expected, or that didn't get the result that I wanted, or that didn't take me where I thought I was going, right? And so all of those are opportunities for awareness and becoming conscious. We lock ourselves into this idea that we are prone to mistakes, because what we do is we look into our past and we collect evidence. See, well, that was a mistake. Oh, well, that was a mistake. Well, there was that mistake again. Look, I just make those, right? Do you see what I'm saying? We're literally collecting evidence, and we are strengthening the belief that we make a lot of mistakes, or that we make mistakes, or that mistake, and then we're perpetuating the belief that mistakes are bad and wrong, as opposed to opportunities for learning. Oh, I didn't like the way that came out. That wasn't actually what I was intending. That's not where I was going. And so that's an opportunity for us to learn. Oh, I might try it differently. Oh, I might say it differently, do it differently, have a different outcome in mind, or intend something different, and begin to give the law new instructions. So when we say there are no mistakes, it's not that we might not feel that way. It's that we don't want to perpetuate that as instructions, causal instructions for the law of cause and effect, to take that, right? And so Thomas Troward has this wonderful way of thinking about this. And he says, if the end is secured in mind, then all the means to the end are already secured. So if that's the case, even the mistake has to be taken into consideration along the path to the end result. So let's say the end result is, I want to, just a fulfilling life that feels very spiritually grounded. And we think, oh, well, if I go live in the mountains, if I go live on the beach, if I go live in my dream place, I will feel happier and feel closer to the place that makes me feel filled up. I watched my dad do this when he semi-retired, and he moved to the Jersey Shore, and he got himself a beautiful condo looking out over the ocean, walk out the front and go down the stairs and walk right out on the beach. And it was something that he thought was going to really, soothe his soul and make him happy. Well, the only problem was that when he got there, they moved out there, which is great. He moved his business, and they moved out there, and Ocean City, New Jersey has a population of about 25,000 people, except for on the 4th of July, when there are 4 million people on the beach. That's a huge swing. So those 25,000 people who own the restaurants and all the shops and all the, all the lifeguards and things like that, those 25,000 people, most of those people, one, have lived there for quite a while. Two, they form a really tight-knit community. And because of the influx of visitors all summer long, they're very hesitant to even engage with new people, because they assume everybody's a visitor. So my dad and his wife moved there. They were new people, and they couldn't find connection. They could not make connections with people who lived there. They found that very challenging and very frustrating. And I actually remember at one point my dad saying, oh man, this might have been a mistake, right? And yet, Thomas Troward says that if the end is secured in mind, even that decision has to be taken into consideration if the end result is a more peaceful, happy experience of life, right? And so I watched my dad really work with that and learn to love sitting on the balcony and feeling the water come in, and experience that in a way different than he had originally expected to experience it, because the end was secured in mind. This is a place of quiet and of a peaceful experience of life. And so even our mistakes, if it takes us on a tangent, even if it takes us backwards, apparently backwards, the causal direction of our outcome actually has to take that into consideration. And then, so now we find ourselves over here Well, now the universe has to work to bring us to our manifestation, to the life that we are building, right? Even with a mistake. So this is another way that he reminds us it's only a mistake if we begin to hold it that way in consciousness. And then what happens, and here's the like key piece of all of this, then what happens is it becomes a belief in limitation. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, and there isn't anything I can do about it. It becomes a limitation. Another way that this limitation gets played out, talked about on the top of page 291, is this idea of missed opportunities or taking the wrong opportunity. In both cases, we usually say, oh, that was a mistake. I didn't take that opportunity, or I missed that opportunity. I only now see that it was an opportunity. That was a mistake. And again, it's a consciousness of limitation, as if we have only one opportunity, as if we have only one time to move, like one time to move to the beach. Like we can only move once, and if we are not happy and we don't like it, we could in fact move again. Like the idea that the opportunity for a promotion or for a expansive experience of life or a relationship that works or whatever, it's as if there's never going to be another opportunity. And some of that is also the idea that our opportunities can only come to us in a particular form. And if it doesn't come to us in that particular form, somehow we've made a mistake. And now we're limited. And yet it could be that it comes in a very unexpected form. People who maybe always wanted children and didn't have a child, and now all of a sudden have the opportunity to adopt, or to have grandchildren, or to have a deep relationship with a neighbor friend, with a neighbor child. There's so many ways in which this experience can actually come to us if we are continuing to be open to the end result, to the possibility, without saying, I missed it. Do you see that? These become limitations. Now, again, it might not be inaccurate to say, I missed that opportunity, but to believe that then it's a mistake and it's never going to come again, or we're never going to experience something like that. Do you see? That's where it becomes this limitation, this box. And so it's these are some of the things that become really hard. I don't want to affirm that. Let's not affirm that. They are very nuanced spiritual understanding. Because on the surface, if I say, no mistakes have been made, none are being made, and none can be made. On the surface, well, that's not true. Well, it's not factually true about our past, but it could actually be spiritually true. Do you see the difference? I may have missed an opportunity. I remember when Jason was in his early teens and I felt like I could no longer travel and do my work with Centers for Spiritual Living. I really needed to be home. It was really important. It seemed to me at that point. And I went on the mommy track in a big way. Actually had already been, but had made a significant decision. And having to really work through that later and go, oh, I missed an opportunity there and really going, well, that's ridiculous. I have all the opportunity in the world. I have all the opportunity of contributing to Centers for Spiritual Living and participating. And of course, it wasn't that long after that when I was just on one committee after another, doing one really what I felt like was important thing after another. So opportunities are constantly presenting themselves. Why? Because we live in an infinite, unlimited universe. So one of the tools that I use for that is to remind myself that it's never just A, it's never just A or B, it's actually not even A, B, or C, because it's actually an unlimited universe. So it could be A, B, C, D, F, G, M, and N, and double A, and I just have to be open to it. What we don't want to do is in our consciousness hold the mental equivalent of limitation and of mistake. Do you see? That becomes a mental equivalent, and it shrinks our engagement with life as if we're stuck. Now we're stuck and there isn't anything we can do about it. And what we know from a spiritual point of view is that that's simply not true. We're not stuck. There's work we can do in consciousness. There's deliberate spiritual work we can do to manifest things or experiences or qualities of life, right? And it is the sense of being stuck. It's the sense of limitation. It's the sense of the mistake which is now haunting us, right? That becomes a shrunken mental equivalent. And that's why all of this is in the chapter on mental equivalence. The idea here is to break open that mental equivalent. Not that we haven't ever done something that we would look back at and say, yeah, that was a mistake. But I immediately want to show myself what there is to learn from it, or if nothing else, to say that doesn't have to be a precedent for the moment that I'm in today. Do you see? And so we're not being Pollyannish. We're not looking at what happened. We're not expressing our feelings. What we're doing is seeking not to create a box in which we live, and not to have our mental equivalent be a mental equivalent of limitation, right? And this is another way of kind of getting a hold of the idea of mental equivalent, in that it's not necessarily a form. It's not a thing. Oh, I have a mental equivalent of a 3,000 square foot house instead of a 2,500 square foot house. See, look, I've grown my mental equivalent. I mean, okay, but that's just one very tiny little aspect of what a mental equivalent is, right? And so to continue to grow a mental equivalent of the unlimited nature of possibility in our own lives could actually be one of the most profound mental equivalents we can grow within ourselves, which really has nothing to do with form. It has nothing to do with any particular form, or job, or money, or any stuff, any acquisition. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a space in consciousness from which we move in the world. And so it's that mental equivalent that allows us to look at a closed door and go, well, there must be 3 other windows. I just have to find them. And why can I believe that? Because I have a mental equivalent of the unlimited, infinite nature of the universe. Therefore, there can't possibly be only one way to move forward, only one way to do this, only one way to accomplish the kind of life that I want to have, right? There has to be other opportunities and options. And so the reason, again, I want to stress, the reason that this is in the chapter of mental equivalence is that it's not, we language it like a belief, but it's really an attitude. It's a space in consciousness from which we're engaging in the world. All right, so mistakes, missed opportunities, and mental equivalence. That's our topic for today. And it's really, this is one of those places where we come to our growing spiritual edge, right? We don't want to make this overly simplistic, but we also don't need to make it overly complicated. So we're going to stop there, and let's talk about how have you worked with this, and where have you felt as though maybe a mistake or a missed opportunity has kept you limited? Is there something we can help with that, or how have you shifted that so that you can actually see it differently and can really say there are no mistakes. All right, so this is your opportunity. We're going to turn to Ryan, say good morning, Ryan, and see what's going on.
Well, thank you, Petra, and good morning to everybody who's participating with us here live on Facebook Live as well as in the Zoom room. And just a reminder for everybody who's watching us on Facebook Live, you can always hop over here to the Zoom room by clicking the link in the description above. And we want to hear from you. So now is the time. If you're in the Zoom room, you can hit the raise your hand icon, and I see some folks that have just done that. As well as you can always leave your comments inside of the chat or the Q&A. And the same goes for those who are watching us on Facebook Live. Feel free to put your comments inside of the comment stream on our Facebook, and we'll read them out loud. And just a reminder for everybody, I love to keep this stuff anonymous, so that way we can open up more to any questions, experiences, or maybe missed opportunities and mistakes that we've been making. So great. I'm going to go ahead and let's call up somebody here first. Let's go with Anita. Anita, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Good morning, Anita.
Good morning, Reverend Petra. Thanks, Ryan. I love this this paragraph, page 290, paragraph 2. No mistakes have been made, none are being made, none can be made. There is one supreme intelligence which governs, guides, and guards, tells me what to do, when to act, and how to act. And then jumping on down to everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. Yeah. That's a paragraph that I have referenced many, many times. And, even now going through experience of unemployment, right? Coming back to this, I made no mistakes.
Right.
I'm not making any mistakes. And yet, there is such a peace that I have right now that everything I need is already right here. So that I can live in that boundless experience of joy.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Anita. And it is really profound to be in that place of unexpected peace that says, yes, I can move through this. And no, there are no mistakes. I didn't make any mistakes. This is an opportunity. And I love what you read. Declare, there's one supreme intelligence which governs, guides, and guards, tells me what to do, when to act, and how to act, right? There's that infinite intelligence that's moving through us. And rather than limit it with, oh my God, that was a mistake. Oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? Rather than limiting it is to really have the attitude that you talk about, to really know that everything necessary is here, right? This is why these things it's so important to reorient our consciousness, as opposed to looking at what I don't have, what's happened, right? I'm reorienting the consciousness to there is something guiding, guarding, and directing me, and everything we need is already here. And so therefore we're always moving forward, as opposed to looking for fault or blame or mistakes, right? It's always looking forward. Now what? How do I move in this space? So I love that you shared that, Anita. And sometimes we affirm things. Sometimes we declare them because, by God, we know they're true. And quite frankly, as you said, right, you've gone back to this paragraph over and over again, probably the whole time you've had a science of mind, right? Sometimes we cling to them like life rafts. And that's okay. That's important. It doesn't matter whether we're clinging to it like a life raft or we're affirming it out of assurance because we're all good and everything's good and we know it's good. In either case, we are taking charge of our consciousness and deciding what instructions we're giving the universe and what instructions we're receiving from the universe, letting it guide, guard, and direct us, as opposed to being in this box of mistake and limitation. So I really love that you said that. Thank you so much, Anita, for sharing that. And again, why we use these affirmations. Sometimes they're affirmations because we're affirming something we already know is true. Sometimes they're affirmations because they're true, it's true, and so we're affirming it so that we feel it and experience it. Yeah. Thanks. All right, Ryan.
So I want to give a shout out to Bobby. She's come up with another great t-shirt idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the t-shirt says, "Mistakes are not my truth."
I love it.
That one.
I love it. Yep, absolutely.
Great idea. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call Dennis into the room. Dennis, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Dennis.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Anita. Nice to hear your voice. Okay, this is just very interesting to me. I have realized that I have grown, I have evolved, whatever you want to call it, and I've learned this through other people on this subject. Because, I don't know, for quite some time now, I've noticed how other people state, when they do something, they go, "Oh, that was a mistake." And all of a sudden, I don't know how long ago I noticed it for the first time about it. And I just spoke up and go, "No, that just didn't work."
Yes.
And I have changed my thinking to where when I do that, so, well, that didn't work.
Yes.
So then going back to this line that obviously is extremely powerful that Anita mentioned, and then you reread it, there is one supreme intelligence which governs, guides, guards, and tells me what to do, when to act, and how to act, okay? So when I read that earlier, I'm like, oh, okay. I take that as him talking about what I call my intuition.
Yes.
And I used it for majority of my life. I was scared to death to listen to it.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you step out into it and it's like, whoa. In fact, there's two things I need to do today because I've been told do it.
Right.
So when class is over, I will get up and I will go do it. And it will be done and everything will be fine and yada yada. But that's the thing. I guess that's the main thing for me. It's like, I go, oh, wow. When somebody says, well, I made a mistake. No, I just didn't work.
Yes. Brilliant. It's brilliant, Dennis. It's brilliant. That's exactly right. Right? And the question is always, now what? Do I try it again? What do I do differently? How do I keep, right? And this is why we tell ourselves and show ourselves these sort of inspiring reminders. You know, Edison, how many ways did he find to not make a light bulb? And every one of them could have been, oh, it's a mistake. Oh, I made a mistake again. Oh, I just can't figure it out. I made a mistake again. And ultimately that becomes, well, why even bother? Because it just doesn't work. Which is very different than, Dennis, what you said. Oh, well, there's a way that doesn't work. Okay, so what do I have to tweak? What do I have to do differently? Why don't I throw out some of those compounds? I'm going to try it entirely differently over here. And so what is it? Nothing more than learning. We're learning. Well, that didn't work. Well, that wasn't it. Well, that wasn't the answer to our prayer. Well, that wasn't our manifestation. Well, that wasn't the job that I thought it was going to be. That wasn't the way I thought it was going to work out. And so we're constantly learning. Oh, this isn't how I wanted to engage with all of this. And so rather than a mistake, right, it is exactly, Dennis, as you say, it's an opportunity of saying, well, that didn't work. So now what? What will I try now? How will I, and then it's that listening to intuition. And so it's not just continuing to do it exactly the same way, insisting, well, this is going to work, this is going to work, this is going to work. it might be that something is trying to teach us that there's another way to look at it, another way to approach it, another way to engage with it, another possibility, another opportunity. And all of that implies learning. And the idea that when we make a mistake, it's usually, when we talk about making a mistake, oh, that was such a mistake, we usually are looking for fault and blame. And whereas, well, that didn't work, implies now what, which is taking responsibility. And that's the difference, right? The whole conversation about a mistake is all about fault and blame. I'm to fault, they're to blame. And we can't move forward. We can't listen to our intuition and our guidance unless we create that opening. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that, Dennis. All right, Ryan, we're coming back to you.
All right. So now I want to go ahead and call into the room. Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Connie. Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend Peter. Good morning, everyone. Wow, this is a majorly great topic. In teaching English as a second language, either in a classroom or with a one-to-one student, I tell them we don't have mistakes in this room. We don't even allow them here.
Yeah.
You know, they might knock at the door. No, we don't let them in. Let's call it, if you say something that happens to not be correct, meaning it doesn't work, let's call it an opportunity for learning. I use those very words that you've been using.
Yeah.
But what I sense, Reverend Petra, is an air of relief comes over the whole room. It's amazing. And then I say, it's not only an opportunity for you to learn, it's a gift to the whole group, the whole class, because there are several others who need the same information. Let's do it. Let's do it together.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so good. And what I find is not only relief, and I can sense it, it's palpable. They want to, when they think they made a mistake, they want to crawl under the chair and hide.
Yes.
Learning. I mean, it's crazy, you know, but yes. And,
yes.
And so
I love that.
For learning, and they start to gather more courage to do it. More courage, strength. And now I need to apply this to myself more deeply.
Good. Well, good for you for noticing that, right? That's really awesome. And thank you for saying all of those things, Connie, right? And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I brought up, where did we learn this? Well, we learned it from our family. Certainly in my Germanic family, it wasn't okay to make mistakes. You had to be perfect. And then we learned it in school. And what do we want to do? We want to crawl under the table. Because we somehow think that making a mistake means that we're a mistake, or that we just don't do it right, or that there's ultimately that there's something wrong with us. And when we can shift all of that to an opportunity for learning, so then it's not just fault and blame, but there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. There's just, and you know, I mean, I go back over and over and over again to sports analogies and things like that, inspiring people like Edison. If you know, in a sports analogy, if you want to get better at something, you practice. Oh, and let's go to baseball. Okay, I remember when I first realized that a really fabulous batting average was like you hit the ball 1/3 of the time. That means that 2/3 of the time you've missed the ball, you've made a mistake. You misread the ball, you swung it, you know, something you shouldn't have, you swung it incorrectly, swung it, whatever. However we tend to do that in our minds, right? In fact, an excellent batting average is like 0.38 something, and that's literally 1/3 of the time. So if we were to go to school, that would be like getting a 30 or 40% on a test. Not a 70 or an 80, but a 30 to 40%. And that's considered excellent. And do you see, we hold these things in such a crazy way, and somehow we then not only apply it to what we're doing, but we apply it to our personhood, to our amness, to who we are, and we decide we want to crawl under the table. And so, this is the whole thing about becoming a learning organization, having groups that we're around that really value experimentation, exploration, right? I mean, what if Edison didn't explore one more way to make a light bulb? One more way to make a light bulb. Well, let's experiment with something else. Let's try something else. Let's explore something else, right? All of those are experimentations, and they're all going to fail, be mistakes, until we hit the right combination. Boom, we have a light bulb. And so it's important, we don't tell these stories just as cliches. One of the ones that is truly astonishing for me, when I first learned, Abraham Lincoln, he won only one election. Only one. And he was in 16 elections. He lost every election at the local and state and national congressional level. He lost every election except for the presidential election. Now, can you imagine if somewhere along the line he had said, well, I just keep making mistakes. Well, I feel so ashamed that I keep losing. I guess I'm too ashamed to run again. It's their fault. I'm going to blame whomever out there that I keep losing. I'm gonna, feel like I'm just not. There's something just must be wrong with me that I keep losing, right? That's just an extraordinary thing to think about. He only won one election. It was the 16th election, and the election for president. That was the only election he won. That's like mind-boggling to me. But what an extraordinary example. I'm directed, I'm led to keep going, to keep running for these offices. Everything that I need is here for an aboundless experience, everything that I need. And sure enough, there he was at a time that was really critical for our country. It's just an extraordinary thing to think about. And so we tell these stories, and we have a tendency to say, oh, well, that was Abraham Lincoln. Well, that was Edison. Like they're somehow different or special. No, that was you and me. That was you and me, only in a different, body and name. Why? Because we're all one. We're all human beings having that same kind of experience. Every one of us has an opportunity to keep moving through it, because we don't create a mental equivalent of failure, or limitation. So thank you so much for sharing that, Connie. All right, Ryan.
Yeah, and somebody wrote here in the chat that Lincoln was also the 16th president. So that's
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's something new. Learn something every day.
Learn something every day.
All right, so the next person I'm going to call into the room is Jeff. Jeff, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Hello, Jeff. Going once. Going. Oh, there you go.
Jeff.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I wasn't expecting to be calling. I guess I hit a thing in the chat, but that's okay. Surprise, surprise.
Aha.
I guess my question is, how do you distinguish what just didn't work from not experiencing a manifestation from what I had been praying for, believing in, and expecting in good faith? It would be easy to just dismiss my not receiving my manifestation by saying, this just didn't work.
That's an excellent question. And I would not make them different. Lots of things might happen along the way to the manifestation that are, well, that didn't work. Well, so the way that I phrase that for myself is, well, that simply wasn't the answer to the spiritual mind treatment that I was doing. Well, it's clearly not the manifestation. And as long as I want to continue to focus on that manifestation, what I get to see is, yeah, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. That didn't work. But again, it's like Edison, right? Well, I don't remember whether it's 999 times or however many, light bulbs he made that didn't work. Any one of them, he could have said, well, there must be something, this manifestation isn't going to happen. But what he said was, well, that was one way that didn't work. And my thought and my experience around this is, it's not so much that we have to know the difference between the manifestation and the not manifesting and the what didn't work, is that we simply have to keep asking ourselves, is this still something that I want? Is it still something I'm going for? We do get to change our minds, but we don't want to change our minds out of limitation, out of, well, this just, it's just not working, so I'm going to stop expecting it. I've had things that I've worked on and 10 years later woken up one day and thought, wow, a few years ago that manifested and I didn't notice. Because I'm so busy working on something else, thinking about what didn't, thinking about what I still don't have or still need or still want. Sometimes we miss the manifestation because some of them take time. We have to become something different. We have to become somebody different on the inside. The entire universe has to rearrange itself for our manifestation to appear. Sometimes our manifestation has been appearing, but it's not in a form that we expected, and so we miss it. We didn't see it. There's all kinds of things. And there are things that we try to do that we think are on the way to our manifestation, and they're simply not. And we get to say, well, that job didn't work, or that relationship didn't work, or that way of doing something didn't work, or moving to that town didn't work. And we get to, each time we get to ask ourselves the question, and that goes back to this other thing that Anita read, right, in this first full paragraph. There is a supreme intelligence which governs, guides, and guards, tells me what to do, when to act, and how to act, right? We constantly have to check in with our intuition over and over and over again. Sometimes over time, the thing that we're seeking to manifest actually changes. Sometimes we recognize that we have become so locked into a form that no other way of the manifestation coming about is acceptable to us. But that form might actually be a limitation. So over time, we get to explore and experiment. And again, there's no mistakes here. There's an opportunity for exploration. Have I become locked into a form? This is the only way this manifestation can appear that is acceptable to me. And if it is, okay, we just have to keep at it, right? Is there a quality or life experience that I'm actually trying to have as opposed to a particular form? Are there simply opportunities for me to keep learning about myself, about how to show up in the world, about the endless number of limited thoughts that I need to keep rewriting in my consciousness, right? All of that is in play. And, I think this is where we have to be careful with the understanding of the law of cause and effect as if it were a billiard ball. My causal thought, I am going to manifest whatever, is going to, in a straight line, create this outcome. And remember that, this is a Newtonian physics way of thinking about the law of cause and effect. We really want to have a much more nuanced understanding of the universal laws. Remember that we're working with a quantum field that has probabilities. The probability of where something will show up. And the probabilities are based on habits, and they're based on the way in which something showed up before. But there are possibilities for it showing up on a whole bell curve of of places, and remember that also on the quantum field there's waves, right? And so waves interfere with other waves, and so we've got lots of things going on in our consciousness, old ideas, false beliefs, our spiritual truth, the way in which we're engaging in the world. And so we're really working to line all of that up. And individual, specific, concrete manifestations can be pretty easy, right? I need $100 to pay for something. I need I got to fix my car. Right? And we use those to get started. But when we're starting to talk about a life and the contribution we want to make and the health and the joy and the happiness and our family and other people who then they're creating their own ripples and their own waves and their own things that they've got going on, and then we multiply that by 8 billion people on the planet and whatever, right? Do you see? It's all of that is going on at the same time. And our work is to constantly raise ourselves out of that and above that to the best of our ability to straightforward spiritual truth and to use our practices. But most of us, me included, we kind of go in and out of that, right? We go in and out of that awareness. And so we're actually giving slightly confusing direction to this quantum field in how we want it to manifest. And in the meantime, we're being grown. We're learning and learning and learning and learning if we're willing. We're constantly learning. That doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Oh God, I'm showing up like my 4-year-old. I know that doesn't work. I've been trying it for 60 years. It still doesn't work, right? We're learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And so, again, this is why, it's really grown-up spirituality that we're doing. And so your question is really beautiful and it's really important. And this is, going back again, there is an intelligence, a supreme intelligence which governs, guides and guards us, tells me what to do, when to act, and how to act. That's our intuition. That's the infinite showing up as us, our inner guidance. It's not something out there. It's our inner guidance, and it's listening to that. Do I still want to move in this direction? What can I learn from this that didn't work out? How does this unfold? And we're at complete choice. We are at complete choice. There's no right answer. There's no right answer. I'm going to keep going for my demonstration. Great. You will learn and grow. You know what? I'm not going to do this anymore because it's just not working. Great. You will learn and grow. Do you see? There's no right answer. There's only your answer. How do you want to move forward? And how does that line up with the intuition that is moving as you? Because remember, there actually aren't any mistakes. If you demonstrate, you will learn and grow. If you don't demonstrate, you will learn and grow. All of which is for our greater experience and expression of life. So thank you, everybody, for your really wonderful and profound comments and questions. I mean, this is all grown-up stuff. It's deep spirituality. This is not Pollyanna-ish, oh, boom, boom, and it's going to be done. There's no, what shall we say? So we allow the work itself, the engaging with these things itself, to grow and deepen us. So spend some time this week, really thinking about how often do you talk about mistakes, missed opportunities, and how do you turn them all into learning opportunities and expanded idea of there's no limitation. So have a beautiful week. Have a lovely Memorial Day tomorrow. I hope you guys are going to enjoy it, however you're going to celebrate it, and have a beautiful week. We'll see you in 30 minutes in our Sunday celebration, or we'll see you online wherever we see you. Bye for now.
All right.